So,
This meeting is now being recorded.
thank you, Madam Clerk. I was just going to mention that. So you've all heard the notice. The meeting is being recorded. We have on the phone already all members of council, Councillor Lamb, Councillor Gorham-Matthews, Councillor McEwen, Councillor Woods, myself, Mayor Comrie. We have our CAO clerk, Michelle Henry, and our fire chief, Bob Whitman. And we have on the phone Doug Hickey, Garth Nash, and Scott Nash. And I believe I have covered off everyone that I've heard of. Did I miss anyone? Well, we might get one or two more to join, but thank you all.
Bruce Morris.
There we go. Okay. Welcome, Bruce.
How's everybody today?
Well, I'm good. And
I'm good also. Bruce, how are you?
Seems like everybody else is too. Haven't heard any complaints so far. So I believe we may get one or two more to join the meeting, but I just completed the roll call, so I think we can we can call the meeting to order. I can call the meeting to order. Could I just remind everybody, if you aren't speaking, if you wouldn't mind muting your phone so that we don't pick up too much background noise. Should be all right, hopefully, because we don't have too many participants. So the first item here would be to ask if there is any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the part of the councillors on the call. Hearing nothing, let the minutes show that no conflict of interest was declared. Our next item would be to, sorry, I'm just flipping pages over here. The next item would be to approve the agenda with the addition of two items to correspondence. One of them is an email that was just received on the weekend and I believe circulated to council today from Doug Hickey, who is on the call, and it regards the pool and wellness center, which we're going to be discussing. So we'll be discussing it before we get to the correspondence item, but the questions that you've raised, Doug, we can perhaps address them when it comes up for discussion. So hopefully by the time we get to correspondence, we will have done with that. The other item is actually a carryover from the previous meeting. If you will recall, there was an item C on our under correspondence on our last meeting that was a letter from the Ontario Fire Marshal regarding staffing levels. And when council was discussing the correspondence items, there were some questions in regards to that memo that we wanted to ask our fire chief. But at that point in the agenda, he had left the call. So I did reach out to him and ask him if he would be able to answer those questions tonight, and he indicated that he would. So I'm suggesting that we just add that on to the end of the correspondence as item K, so that we don't lose track of it. So could I get a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of those two items to correspondence?
I'll make the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconder?
I'll second, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition to that agenda? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, I will So I declare the agenda approved. And and now we are going to race through the next several items. There are no presentations or delegations this evening. There is nothing for committee of the whole, no planning items. Well, there is a planning item, but it's not that need to be discussed in committee of the whole. It will come up when we get to bylaws. There's no public meeting. So that would then take us to item number 9. Unless I've missed something, Madam Clerk, I believe that would take us to the consent agenda, item number 9, which consists of 2 items: the regular council meeting minutes for October 19th, and the list of unfinished business or action items or whatever that are on page 3 of your agenda. So could I get a mover and seconder for the consent agenda, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gorman-Matthews, seconded by
I will so move it, Mayor. Okay.
That was Councillor McEwen, was it, or Councillor Woods?
Councillor Woods.
All right, Councillor Woods. Well, any discussion about the consent agenda? Are there any items that you wish to pull for further discussion after we approve it?
Yes, Mayor Comrie, I could give an update on item 8, the invasive species.
All right, thank you. That would be great. Okay, so that's in the unfinished business. So I'm just going to make a note of that under matters arising. That will be item eight. Okay, thank you for that. So the consent agenda has been moved and seconded. Are you ready for the question? Is this agreeable? Anybody opposed to adopting the consent agenda? Okay, hearing no objection. It's carried, and we will move on to matters arising from the consent agenda. And Councillor Gorman-Matthews.
Yes, I just wanted to let everyone know that I did reach out to Dennis Morrison, who we had spoke about regarding the invasive species, that he was a bit of our local expert with regards to his involvement with the Rod and Gun Club and the Conservation Association. So he did have a number of ideas, and he said that he had been to council maybe about 3 years ago, he thought, and done a presentation on invasive species. So he has a lot of the information that he's going to just kind of pull up from before, and we'll go through it in the next couple weeks and see what any action items that he has from that that we can pull forward. He said there were a few policies that people had been suggesting other municipalities were using with regards to just simple things like when you have a contractor come in to do work, one of the policies that you could have would be that the contractor has to have cleaned their equipment from working in one lake to another lake or another job to another job, just so that invasive species aren't transported on equipment and things like that. The other thing that we kind of talked a bit about was how to communicate effectively with residents and taxpayers about invasive species, and we're kind of dancing around the idea of doing like an information card, like what we have coming out in our next tax bill there, with the information about lights and not speeding on the lake and things. So this would be something that would be a little bit more environmental and kind of touch on not emptying your bait bucket in the lake, buying your wood local so that you're not transporting Dutch elm disease, and there's some other disease related to ash trees that can be spread as well with bringing wood from one community to another community. You also mentioned that there's this invasive species hotline that's run by the MNRF and the Anglers and Hunters Association, that you can take pictures of weeds and things that you're not too sure about whether they're invasive or not, and they'll actually identify them and tell you how to get rid of them and things. So all that kind of stuff could be compiled into one kind of document to share with people. So I just wanted to let you know that I've touched base with him, and we have a few ideas that we're bantering around, and as we get going on it, we'll bring some things forward to council. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other comments or questions on that?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb. Councillor Lamb. I want to acknowledge and thank Councillor Gorham Matthews. I was the one that brought this item up, so I appreciate everything that you've done on this, and Dennis. So when you say and I look forward to not only getting and discussing but implementing some of these initiatives. I take it when you say we'll be discussing, you mean the people on the committee for the animal and bird control bylaw? Is that who you're talking about? We'll be discussing? I don't know who that is.
Well, at this point with COVID and everything, it was just going to be a discussion that Dennis and I were going to have, just to kind of communicate and facilitate between each other what information he has and what's still relevant to bring forward to council. So.
Okay. I understand
that was the plan.
But can we?
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can we assume though that? Sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I think anything that's irrelevant we shouldn't be discussing now. But I would hope that Dennis would see fit to come to a council meeting again and, perhaps, as a delegation and say, quickly, here are the, 3 or 4 or 5 things that I think you should do to protect our lakes against invasive species, and council, or send a paper or an email or something so that council can simply say, yeah, we're for this, and direct staff to either look into it and come back to us, or direct staff to just do it. So that's the process I would see occurring. So thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the simplest, is just to narrow down and focus some of the ideas that he has and then bring them forward for discussion.
Great.
Yes, thank you. The note that I had based on your report to Councillor Gorham Matthews was that we should expect, council should expect to receive something at some point, that Dennis was going to put some material together for consideration by council. So hopefully that's what the that's what the action item under the unfinished business will reflect the next time around, and hopefully we're not putting too many words in your mouth. But my hope certainly would be that we would get some kind of a report or presentation back suggesting things that we might want to do in response to this.
I would hope within the next month. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Is that it for new business? Can we move on? Or sorry, for consent agenda, I mean?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen.
Go ahead.
I'd like to give a brief update on the nursing station expansion feasibility, what's going on. I can do that under input later if you wish, or I could do it now.
Why don't we do it later, because we're going to be talking about it briefly. Well, no, maybe not briefly, but we're going to be talking about it under new business.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Or sorry, it's not new business. It's business matters. But anyway, that one is. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
It isn't. It isn't there. No. I apologize. It isn't there. I was mentally thinking it was. So you know what? We should. We should let you do your report right now. Please go ahead.
Okay, it's very off the cuff here, but just to inform council and public that the group forming an ad hoc committee for the feasibility study for the expansion of the nursing station met last week. It was West Prairie Sound Health Center staff, Whitestone Nursing Station Committee, being the nurse practitioner, and the chair of the committee, myself, and you, Mayor Comrie, joined in. CAO, Michelle Henry, was in attendance. So we've struck a briefer committee or group to look at the application for the grant, for a grant to proceed with what could be the expansion to the nursing station. So that's pretty much it. The site plan was discussed and it's been reviewed. We'll have an architect give us some information as well, providing information for the application for the grant as well. So it's just a very brief update on how we're proceeding there. It's been a slow boat to China here in some respects, but the time frame is very tight. But West Prairie Sound with the communications person, Jim Hanna, he and our chair for the nursing station, Marcella Schuldeis, they will spearhead it and pull things together best they can, and hopefully work toward the grant application date. We still don't have the formal paperwork, as I understand it, to do the actual filing of the application, so hopefully that's forthcoming very soon. Maybe our CAO could expand on that briefly for me if she wishes, or that is the brief. Thank you.
I can add a few things.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. That was a good update. To your last question, though, there is no online application yet that's been released, so we're waiting patiently for that. We don't even know when it will be released. So as soon as we know, we'll let you know. But we are working with the architect on what the design should look like and the functional planning in terms of space. And that will, I think the first meeting of that small group of people is this Friday, from what I could see. And we'll get some costing, and as Councillor McEwen said, there's two people that are going to work actively on the grant application, and a couple of us will polish it and edit it. And hopefully we'll do all this before December 2nd. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else under the consent agenda?
Well, just on the nursing station, and I appreciate Councillor McEwen and our staff working on this. I think we have another grant going forward under that program on December the 2nd or so. So I know time frames are tight, but I had questioned that, in expanding the nurses station, if we're to put funds in as a community in Whitestone, that McKellar and Magnetawan, probably more particularly, but both of them, share in the usage of this nurses station. It's not just all Whitestone residents. And, you know, the funding model, or at least reaching out to those councils and saying, you know, here's the cost that we're going to bear, and how about sharing whatever it is, a third, or whatever, you know, be asked. So was there any discussion on that, or where is that lying? Is it, you know, who's doing that, I guess, is my question. Thank you.
Okay, I can give you a partial.
Go ahead.
Did you want to answer, Councillor McEwen?
Well, just to briefly state that we have reps from McKellar and a really very good representative from Magnettawan as well on the nursing station committee, and they've both shown great anxiousness toward this and feel that there can be assistance forthcoming from those from our neighboring municipalities. McKellar, in fact, they offered to give us some token grant in this past year to put toward equipment and such. So there's certainly interest there, and we will be reaching out further to them for sure. And once we get the information on the grant availability and possibility with what we have in our kitty for the nursing station presently, and if we do luck out with the grant moving forward, then assistance from our neighbors and ourselves will certainly be looked at and divvied in the best way we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was, thank you. I was going to comment that I did have a conversation with the mayor of McKellar about funding applications because they have an interest in this one, and they have an interest in the broadband, which we're going to mention a little bit later in the agenda. And again, the mayor indicated that McKellar was prepared to ask their council to say if we did make an application for the nursing station, that McKellar was prepared to support that, and that they would also be prepared to look at financial support. So we did get a positive indication. I haven't had any conversations with the mayor in Magnettawan at this point. I guess the other comment I'll make is that, I was going to make it again when we got into Section 13, but there is some question in our minds as to whether, in fact, this next round of COVID-19 related ISIP funding is going to like whether either of these projects, meaning the nursing station or regional broadband, would be eligible for that funding. The terms of reference are for those grants are still being nailed down, and we're just getting little dribs and drabs of information out of the government of Ontario on the subject, but it's not clear that either of those particular projects could be the subject of an application for that funding. And what we decided to do, oh, by the way, the other thing that is becoming increasingly apparent every day is that because they're still sorting things out, that deadline of December 2nd is going to move. It's not going to be possible in a month, in my view, I mean, it may be possible for them to finalize the terms of reference, but then to turn around and say to people, well, you've got to get your application, a credible application, in by December 2nd is clearly not reasonable. And So I suspect that this, the deadline for the ISIP funding is going to, it will happen, but it'll move into 2021, first quarter of 2021 somewhere. And the position that we took in our discussions about it, and there have been quite a bit of discussions, and people have been trying to get our act together on the assumption that we did really have a December deadline, and we had to produce something credible in that time frame. The decision we made was, well, we can't just sort of sit around and wait and see whether these things would fit or not. They are both credible projects that we ought to be thinking about how to prepare applications for grant funding for, and so we would proceed as normal, as expeditiously as we can to try to put together those applications. And if it turns out that they're not eligible for the ISIP funding, then we'll shop around and try to find some other source of funding for them. So the work is going to go ahead with the view of preparing quality submissions, and we'll just have to see where we end up. But we're not sitting waiting to see until the final terms of reference and the application forms or everything are released. And maybe we will get lucky, and maybe they will not lucky, but maybe we, when the dust settles, we'll discover that they are good applications for funding, and maybe they will go forward, one perhaps by the municipality of Whitestone, and one supported by McKellar, and one by McKellar supported by us, or whatever. But we're going to keep working, and you'll be the first to know, Council, when we have something to report about ISIP. So, can we move on to accounts payable? Could I get a motion to approve accounts payable in the amount of $229,540.93, and payroll in the amount of $45,612.88 for payment?
I will move. Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councilor McEwen. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councilor Woods.
Thank you, Councilor Woods. Discussion. Are there questions or comments about the accounts payable?
Yeah, Councilor Lamb, I have a couple. Actually, the very first one, A.J. Stone, this is directed, I guess, to the fire chief. $1,700 for a hose for training. Is that exactly what it says? It's a hose that you use for training? Or not? Like, what is that?
Yeah, I can answer that, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's a suction line for the new standpipe that we use for training. There's 2 sections, 10 feet each. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah,
Sorry.
We heard you. Okay. But you only use it for training? You don't use it if you're actually filling a tanker, or?
Nope. Pretty much just for training, because we have one on the pumper. I mean, you could use it for just about anything else, but that's basically what it's used for. It stays on the floor of the fire hall. If you want to come and look at it, you can come in and see it laying there.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't need to see it. I guess my question would be, in training in past years, what have you done?
Well, in past years, the standpipe was 2.5, and we have a 2.5 suction line sitting on the floor as well. Now we've put in a new 6-inch standpipe, so now we have a 6-inch that we use.
Ah, so it changed because of the new standpipe.
Correct.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, thank you. My second question is to where is it? I saw somewhere in here a road grant after, we were responding. I don't even have it with me. I thought it was right here, but it's here. So, here it is, yeah. That's actually the second question. Road grant application for Ladd's Road, and we're now into November. If you look at the road grant protocol, the deadline for applying for a road grant is September. So, if we're going to follow our bylaw, I guess I question why we're giving a road grant in November when the deadline is September. And that's to Elroy Brower. It's check 35, or payment number 35411. It's the second payment. Thank you.
Do you have any comment, Madam CIO?
I'm just looking through the accounts here, and there was a series of emails, and it appears that it went to the wrong address. It was originally sent in September. It says, yes, the amount was, I'm just reading from an email from our treasurer, Pat Allen. The check was mailed to you the beginning of September to the address below, and then only to find out that it was the wrong address, so it had to get remailed to another address. So that's why you're seeing it on the accounts here.
Good. So the application was put in before the end of September.
Yes, absolutely. And the payment was to be in early September, but it appears there was an address problem.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, the application for the road grant is actually September 21st. August 21st was the application date, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions on payables? Okay, if not, sorry, did I hear a question coming or no? Okay, if not, could I then ask our clerk to call the roll, please, for this motion?
I will, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gorham Matthews?
Yes.
Councillor Lamb?
Yes.
Councillor McEwen?
Yes.
Councillor Woods?
Yes.
Mayor Comrie?
Yes. Okay, thank you. The payables are approved unanimously. Okay, that brings us then to item number 11, which is our bylaw section. And we have a bylaw to enter into an amending consent agreement for conditions of approval of consent B02/2018 Whitestone. The applicants being Scott and Garth Nash, who are on the phone or were a minute ago. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder for this motion. That bylaw 49-2020 being a bylaw to enter into an amending consent agreement for conditions of approval of consent B02/2018 under the Planning Act. This is the Nash's application. Be read a first and second time this second day of November 2020 and further read a third time passed and properly signed and sealed this second day of November and numbered 49-2020. Could I get a mover and seconder for this?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this motion? Or any questions?
Councillor Lamb, I'm tempted to say, this has been a slow boat to China. I've never seen an application take so long. I'm tempted to say, what was the issue and why is it taking this long? And how was it resolved?
Perhaps I can ask the CAO to answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Probably the best and the shortest answer is that we were wordsmithing some wording, and I think we finally landed on wording that suited both parties, and that's with the help of our lawyer and the Nash's lawyer. And I believe we're all content that it reads the way we're comfortable at reading. It protects all the parties, and that's probably the best and the shortest answer, rather than going into some of the items that we negotiated. But I as the CAO and the clerk feel very confident that it's the amending agreement reads the way it should, and I expect the Nashes do as well, because we heard from their lawyer in terms of what they would like to see in the agreement. So it just came down to a few words and sentences at the end, but we're confident that we're on the right track and we're close to the end of this particular planning matter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I have another question. Oh, I have one more question, Councillor Lamb. In the amending consent agreement, it talked in sections 21 and 22. I'd like to know the meaning of those. Section 21 under Part J, gooseneck lake boat or lake boat ramp. There are two statements under Section 21 and 22. Basically saying that the consent agreement does not apply to and is no way enforceable upon the addition of Part J as provided in the amending consent agreement, and Section 22 is very similar. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Thank you.
Once again, Madam CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I need to apologize. I didn't bring the file home with me, which I normally would. It was sitting on my desk, in which case the original agreement is there. Now, I know that Scott and Garth are on the phone, and I would suspect that they have the original agreement in front of them, and perhaps they could speak to those two items. Since I apologize, I don't have the agreement in front of me.
Gentlemen, would either of you care to comment on this? I'm going to look it up while you're talking here and see if I have the.
Sorry. Yeah,
and I'll find it on my computer as well.
I don't have it right to hand right now. I'm traveling and don't have that in front of me.
All right. Well, just give me a second. We'll see if we can come up with
for everyone's information. It starts that the owners of the severed 3 lots and their guests not park their vehicles or boats overnight at public landing. Then 22 says the owners and the municipality acknowledge and agree that Part G of the consent agreement. So I guess you have to look at Part G of the consent agreement. Does not apply in any way or in any way is enforceable upon the addition of Part J as provided. These are legal documents, and again, I have the right, and I am questioning. I'm not saying anything's wrong. I'm just saying that's a lot of gobbledygook to me, and this file has been so outstanding. I want to make sure that we're not negating our ability to enforce that the owners of the ultimate owners of these lots are not able to park overnight at the boat launch, and I suspect strongly that these statements are correct and does not allow them to do that. But I just, when I hear not enforceable or not, sort of puts my ears up a bit. So I just want to know. So.
And hi everybody. Sorry, I'm just at physio, so I don't have everything in front of me. But can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you. Okay.
So I don't have the file in front of me, Councillor Lamb, just because I'm at like a physio appointment, but I was listening in here. And those two parts, what they talked about under the original agreement was to do with septic systems and how the consent agreement is part of I think it's part of the 5126 of the Planning Act. And I believe what's struck out is that because this is something that was requested after the fact and not at LPAT, that's why those items don't apply. And it's to do with the septic system that was originally put in, if I'm correct, Michelle, like to do with the septic system, the environmental screening, that kind of stuff, and to do with fees that are to do with that part, like the fines that are associated if you don't follow the protocol for those initial screenings for your septic and stuff like that, if I'm correct in my remembrance of it.
Yeah, actually, this is embarrassing. Part G, which is referenced in Section 21, I'm just looking at the consent agreement. That's the expenses to be paid by owner, and that's the section that the two lawyers negotiated out, and we all agreed to when it's specific to the boat ramp. And Part I it's referenced. Part I, administration of the consent agreement does not apply, and as with respect to the boat ramp, because Part I actually refers to, as you said, the Section 5126 agreement. So there wasn't a link from the boat ramp issue to the just simply administration of the 5126. So hopefully that's the explanation is sufficient. I can assure you that it was a long and arduous discussion on how we would apply this change to this amending agreement to the original one. But now I look at this, I recall those are the reasons.
Well, Councillor Lamb, I'm not going to stand in the way of approving this, but to me the explanations are as clear as mud to a layman. But anyway, I guess let's move on. Like, I don't understand either of those, but anyway, maybe it's my intelligence, but or lack of attention or something. But anyway, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely not, Councillor. There's a bit of a complication when you're applying sections of an agreement that's already been approved and registered to the amending component. And I'm happy to do a short memo after the fact to explain how these two sections don't apply, and do it a little bit more plain language.
Thank you. Why can't we do plain language right now?
Well, in retrospect, the agreement that is being amended should have been part of this. I think should have been part of the council package.
Yeah, absolutely,
Madam Clerk. And then people could look and see exactly what was being changed. And I'm looking. I was looking at my online files, and I don't have it online file. I would have to go and pull a paper file, which I could do, but and then I could find the agreement and read it to you. But if it were not for the fact that our counsel, Chris Zekas, participated in this, I would be inclined to say, well, let's defer it and get a so we have all the information in front of it. But knowing that he in fact negotiated this, I guess from my own point of view, I'm satisfied that the matter will have been resolved correctly. So
I do not want to defer this.
Okay. Well, thank you. We can follow up with the clerk has offered to follow up with the necessary information so that you can see, in fact, the details. If anybody who wants to can see them, and that way we'll. And it would be helpful. Since I noticed that I don't have a computer files, machine readable version of the document, I wouldn't mind getting one just so that my records are complete too. But anyway, are there any other questions or comments about this?
Councilor McEwen, when I read it, I was exactly the same baffled, or had the same bewilderment as Councilor Lamb on 21 and 22, but hearing that they are more independent of 20, which was the boat ramp, the existing landing, I guess, in essence. I think we should in future maybe have a little bit more detail just to go with the changes. It would answer a lot of our little questions, I think. If CAO does come forward with a bit of supporting documentation or backup for us, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Can we call the question then, or are there any other comments or questions? If not, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews.
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And that brings us then to item 13. We have actually, we have 3 items here that are here as opportunities for discussion. And unless somebody objects, what I'm proposing to do procedurally is not to bother moving into committee of the whole, but rather just introduce these items, give councilors and others on the call an opportunity to ask questions about them or comment on them. And if there are any action items coming out of them, what we can do is we can entertain a motion to do whatever it is that you wish. So, without further ado,
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, is what you're saying that Mr. Morris and Mr. Hickey, who I think are the only 2 members of the public who are on the call, will be able to participate in the discussion on these 3 items? Is that what you're saying?
That's my intention, unless councilors have an objection to so doing.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, and if there's a motion required, I'll make that motion.
Well, as I say, normally we would probably go into committee of the whole, which is the mechanism you use to allow for discussion when there's no motion on the floor. But I'm just not. I wasn't concerned to sort of
Sure.
hang us up on procedure unless someone wishes to insist, and we can do that. So I don't think a motion is necessary. We can carry on. I'm going to just kind of introduce these, and I'll start with the broadband and just kind of fill you in on what has happened. You have heard mention of this in previous meetings, just as a sort of information item, that there was stuff going on in the background. The municipality of McKellar, or the township of McKellar, their council decided, by the way, that their number one priority for kind of new infrastructure development and for infrastructure development type funding applications, if they were going to make any, would be improvements to broadband connectivity, meaning, of course, internet, and they're in somewhat the same situation that the municipality of Whitestone is in. They don't have the same geographic area, but they have significant chunks of their municipality, including their municipal office, and right in downtown McKellar, where internet access is spotty for purposes of doing things like having video conference calls and so on. And so the kind of service that they have available to them right now is similar to what we have in, say, in Dunchurch. So where Bell is the primary provider with cell tower service. So in any case, they were interested in trying to see what they could do to, in fact, they wanted to make an ISIP application, an application for ISIP funding. They wanted to know if we would support that or go together with them, and we said we would, and at least we would discuss that, and we would work together on trying to get the information together that's necessary. So there have been a number of conference calls about this and discussions with other parties in the area that are doing, in West Parry Sound, that are doing similar, that have similar projects underway. If the council is interested at some point in time, we could probably arrange to have a presentation on what is happening in the municipalities that are south of us, and I'm referring specifically to Seguin and the archipelago, who are have some. Those municipalities have taken active steps to try to start implementing solutions, and they have a project underway that involves some additional towers being put up in in the Carling area and McDougall area to service their municipality, and in Seguin, to service those areas of the municipality with fixed wireless, which comes not via wires or fiber optic cable, but via wireless communication from a tower. But it's a fixed. It's not like what most of us have with the bell towers, where you basically establish a call when you're ready to connect. And these are closer. The type of service is closer to what you would experience in a larger urban area, where basically you have a connection and it's on all the time. And the objective, of course, is to get higher speeds. First of all, to eliminate the uncertainty about whether you'll get a connection or not. Secondly, to get higher speeds. And third, to get lower prices, because without data caps and that sort of thing. So basically, the process is that you try to find a technology partner who provides this kind of service, who is willing to, if they get some additional assistance, to defray the cost of the, building out the necessary infrastructure, will commit to provide this better service to people within a certain range of whatever towers end up being constructed, typically based on wireless towers that have wireless heads on them, like a cell tower. So there are two that are going on kind of around us. The first one is based south of us. It originates with the old forestry tower in Parry Sound, which was purchased by the Township of the Archipelago, and they are now running. They have now got commitments to create other towers, both in Seguin and which doesn't really help us in any way, but one of them would be they're trying to service the industrial park in McDougall and that area, and so they have permission to put a tower at that location, which presumably there could be a data link between that and another tower further north in, say, McKellar or Whitestone or wherever, and so on. So there's a possibility of some extension of that activity that's going on. And similarly, there is also some activity going on. By the way, their technology partner is ViaNet, if you're interested. There's also some activity going on to the east of us, which is coming as far as the town of Magnetawan, and it is part of the Blue Sky Region initiative out of North Bay. They're doing the same thing coming west from the Highway 11 corridor, and their technology partner is NetSpectrum. So anyway, the first thing, in order to get any reasonable technical and cost information that you would have to put in a grant application, it was determined that what we needed to do is to issue a request for information from potential suppliers of this potential technology partners. And so a little ad hoc group of people from both McKellar and the CAO and I were involved as far as Whitestone is concerned. And by the way, the CAO did a good chunk of, our CAO did a lot of the real legwork, and so I'll give her an opportunity to comment on this in a sec. Put together this, and there were the mayor and a councillor from McKellar put together, with some technical assistance, put together this request for information, which actually went out last Friday to various people, and the clerk can tell us, but if you're interested who they were. But we're trying to very quickly get some information back that would allow us to potentially scope possible solutions in terms of what the cost would be, what the benefit would be, who would get serviced, how many people would get serviced, and roughly at sort of at what level of service and what cost and that sort of thing, so that if there is an opportunity for funding, and eventually there will be, I'm sure, both the province and the feds have promised to have more rounds of application for funding for this sort of thing in the future. So even if it doesn't fit under the ISIP one that was supposed to happen on December 2nd, there'll probably be others in the coming year that it could be directed to this proposal. So anyway, just to let you know that this activity is going on. There's been a flurry of activity, and people are doing work to try to see if we can figure out a way to improve our situation sooner than the current common carriers are going to do it for us. So I'll stop there and ask if the clerk wants to add anything, anything else to what I've said about this. And then if not, I'll open it up for any questions or comments that people want to make.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a lot to add other than yeah, it was a collaborative effort with Dan Hildebrand. His name should be mentioned, and really it's a request for information. We don't see these very often, but in this case, you know, when you don't know what you don't know, it's really important that you bring the service providers to the table to tell us what they can do for us under certain circumstances. So it closes November 18th, I believe. So whether it becomes part of a grant application, which is questionable at this point, or it just provides information for the future, it's going to be we'll be a couple of steps ahead of where we were a month or two ago, knowing what can be done for McKellar and Whitestone. We're in the middle. We're in between the Highway 11 corridor and the Highway 400 corridor. So we have some special needs. So yeah, that's all I have to add. You covered it well, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, questions or comments from councilors or anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen.
Go ahead.
Yes, listening to all this, it almost sounds like with the holding back of grants or the availability of grants like Keller was looking at, and we were hoping to discuss with them about. It's still more of a holding pattern to see what will come down the pipe from or up the road or down the road. Whitestone being in the pocket we're in, sort of thing. So, as much as it's a priority in our minds in a big way, it just seems like we're not in much of a position to do much more than just keep on investigating. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I guess if you go back to when we first, when the province first indicated that they were going to have this round of what I refer to as COVID-19 specific ISIP funding. You recall when we originally presented this opportunity to council and asked what you thought we should apply for, what you thought we should apply for. The information at the time suggested that anything, you know, the main constraint seemed to be that you had to be able to establish it. That somehow or other it was dealing with a need that had been exacerbated at least by COVID-19, and I think we thought that we had a good opportunity to do that with both the nursing station and the and broadband. And as you recall, this council tended to favor the nursing station as the priority, and McKellar tended to favor broadband. And when we got talking to each other about this, we said, well, let's see if we can, since both things matter to both municipalities, so let's just plow ahead and see. What the messaging that we're getting now is that broadband may be excluded from that COVID-19. If broadband is not excluded, I suggest to you that the town with the most likely outcome is that the township of McKellar will submit an application, and whether it's a joint, we don't know if they're going to allow joint applications. It might be a joint application with Whitestone. It might be an application where we simply support it, and it's their application. But we don't. If it's not precluded, unless we get an indication that they're not going to consider broadband under that tranche of the grant, then I suggest to you that we'll put something in if we at all possible whenever the deadline is, which will probably be early next year. So we have, as you can see, we don't have if we had to put the application in today. We couldn't do it because we don't have enough information to make a credible proposal. So we have to get the information, and we had to do that anyway. So the thought was, let's get the information together and try to put something together credible. And whenever the first opportunity is for it to be funded, then we would try to put it out. And again, as I say, exactly who it is that applies, and what the roles are of other municipalities that might be involved, which in this case is likely just McKellar, or maybe it's McKellar, but that we're supporting them, as I say. But all of that would will get figured out in due course, and we of course will come back to council and say to our council, as they will to their council, and say, let's get approval for let's agree on what it is that's being proposed. Right now, we're not even in a position to give you a concrete proposal, but it is being worked on in the hopes that there will be a funding opportunity in 2021, and we'd like to have something ready to go in so we can see if we can make something happen. That's really where we are. And I guess worst case, we'll get at least the framework of an application, and it might sit on the shelf for a while until an appropriate funding opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, Councillor Lamb, I find we've been 60 minutes or so on this conversation. I find it long, drawn out, frustrating from my standpoint. I've been on council for 13 years, and we've been talking about high speed or data and internet speeds and all those sorts of things. They're critical to our community, and we need to advance whatever initiatives are out there. It appears that our priority is the nursing station in this round of grants. We need high speed and everything, as I need and we need and our community needs to have every bit as much connectivity and speed in Whitestone as we have in Burlington or Welland or St. Catharines or Newmarket or whatever. That's the bottom line, right? And the federal government have initiatives going on, I think, to sort of kind of get us there. But no matter how much we've spoken to this over the last 12 or 13 years, we're not getting there. And I guess I encourage whoever's doing this to keep plodding along. But it's a difficult hill to climb, and we need it. We've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into our library, which the federal government has given us $150,000 of that money to call it a library and technology center. Well, if you're going to be a technology center, you better at least have high-speed internet in your library. And it seems sort of silly. So what we need to do is lobby to say to the people that gave us the grant, come on, we're a technology center and we can't get on the internet, or if 4 people show up at the library and are checking out books, our system slows down so much we can't check out books and need to say, wait 10 minutes till we can check books out. It's ridiculous, okay? And, I guess I'm making the case for exactly the application that we want to make, but I think it's like hitting our head against the wall. Hopefully we'll get there someday, but it's a very frustrating thing. Technology center, P.S., you can't get on the internet, right? But I can tell you from the library standpoint and the board of the library, we've done all kinds of things. We're we're looking at, if people are in the book club and they're out where they, in this virtual world, they can't, come in and talk about books in the library, that they can connect through the internet. But if they're out someplace that they can't connect, or their connectability is bad, we can get, I don't know whether it's called a hotspot or whatever, and pay for it and send, an iPad out to them so they can connect. So there's all kinds of technologies, but I don't want to carry this on for another half hour on broadband and towers and all this other stuff. But, we're at least trying to do our part in this. And anyway, I'll finish it at that. Carry on, try to do the best you can do with the application with McKellar, and see what we can do or not do. But our priority, if there's only one grant under this grant proposal, it's the nursing station. And if we only have one, then what we can do is we can support McKellar's initiative, to get broadband. So thank you. Over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, are there any other comments? It's really just an update to let you know that there are people are working on this on our behalf. That was the main purpose of including the item. Okay, if there aren't any others, then I'll move along to item 13.2, which has to do with the Pool and Wellness Center. And what I propose to do here is to give you a quick update of, just remind you a little bit about where we came from, where we're at today, and what the proposal is kind of for steps going forward. And then I once again, I will ask our CAO to, because she has been involved with this initiative extensively, I will ask her to maybe fill in some details, and then we'll see whatever questions or comments people want to make. You probably are aware of this, but there has been a movement to attempt to get it's primarily a swimming pool. I still think of it as a pool, but a pool and wellness center complex that would have a pool and other complementary functions in it. In the Parry Sound area, this has been going on for probably 20 years. And the latest attempt started back in, I would say, 2018 or so, and Mayor Armstrong was our representative on the group that was working on that, and so I kind of inherited, I guess, my involvement came as was sort of inherited, I suppose, from his, but back in late 2019 or second half of 2019, there was kind of enough energy behind this particular initiative to cause it was before I became mayor of Whitestone, you'll recall, but in any case, it caused the heads of council to agree that they would establish themselves as a sort of a committee to try to move this agenda forward, and that they would get the CAOs of the 7 municipalities in West Parry Sound we're talking about, and we get the CAOs to form an advisory committee and do some of the legwork. And coincident with that, an opportunity arose to get, again, it's ICIP funding, but it was a different slice of ICIP funding that was announced in 2019 with a deadline of, I think it was December of 2019, if I'm not mistaken. The clerk will correct me, I'm sure, if I'm wrong. But in any case, our council agreed at that time to support that application and actually agreed to spend some money, to contribute some money, because there was some due diligence work that was required. And those groups were put in place together with a citizens advisory committee. There was a major push put on in the closing months of 2019 to prepare an application for federal funding. And this is a huge application, and a lot of work had to be done. There was conceptual work had to be done by architects and engineers and various other people and so on. So, and the CAO group of the 7 municipalities did a great deal of the legwork on putting that application in. In February, you will recall, we reported to you that the 7 municipalities had got together at the Roma conference and had a delegation with the Ministry of Infrastructure to ask for their support for our application. So that's kind of how we got started. In the course of the intervening months, various things happened. The Citizens Advisory Committee met and made some recommendations for changes, some minor, some more, not so minor, that could be made to the original concept of the new facility. There was discussions. People did work on, okay, if this were to happen, how would it be governed? What would the governance structure be? There was work done on what the share of the various municipalities would be for the capital costs that would not be funded by the grant, because we knew that they wouldn't fund all the capital costs, and the operating costs once the thing was assuming it was approved and built and up and running, what would the operating costs likely be, and would there be any deficit relative to what the users of the facility would end up paying for it in terms of memberships and so on. And questions like who would, the site selection, where would you put it, there were options considered for that and so on. So those of you who are following this will know that there was a report that was presented to the committee made up of the heads of council just recently, and it contained recommendations on those various items that I have just mentioned, and basically what was agreed to at that particular meeting was that the recommendations, I think all of them were approved, or pretty much all of them, and they would be used as the basis for presentations, which would then be made to the individual municipalities. So there would be a bit of a road show. Some of the people who've worked on this would come out to each municipality at a council meeting. And I think the thought was that they would be public meetings probably for that particular purpose, and the rationale for this pool and wellness center would be presented. The details, and there would be opportunities for people to ask questions and so on. We are still at the stage where we do not know if we're going to have any funding. Personally, I am confident that we will in fact receive the funding that was asked for, but I have no insider information on which to base that. I just think it's indications we've got is that our proposal was well received and it's likely to get funded. So that's where we're at. We don't know when. In the meantime, because of COVID-19, of course, we haven't had as much discussion in the individual communities of this as anybody would have liked, and so the thought was, well, we can try to go ahead and at least have some discussion about it in preparation for the day that will come when each individual council will be asked to, to sign on. So that is, in a nutshell, where we are today. Just a couple of other comments. In the process, this has been a long drawn-out process, and a huge amount of work has been done by a relatively small number of people. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not one of those people, but our CAO is, and that's, I want her to have an opportunity to highlight any other things that I should have mentioned and didn't think of. But periodically the folks in either the Ontario government or the federal government would come back, and because it's federal money, right? This is a joint. ISIP is a joint federal provincial program that's sort of administered through the province. So, but the feds have the final approval on what is funded and how much. So, periodically they would ask us, because the funds available were greatly oversubscribed, they would ask us, are you guys still serious? And I think you can appreciate we had to say yes. We had no choice but to say yes, because if we had done anything otherwise, we would have just been taken off the list. But I want to assure you that all of the participants, the politicians and the public servants involved at both levels of government understand very clearly that we are not the 7 municipalities in West Prairie Sound are not in a position to fund this on our own. And if we don't get the grant, it is likely not going to happen. And I think that is in fact the position that you want to be in, because you may have heard there were some applications that were received for other projects, and somehow or other the approvers got wind of the idea that, well, they're going to do it anyway whether we fund them or not, and so they basically said, look, if we're not going to make the difference between go or no go for this project, then we don't need to fund it. And so, this is a probably one time in the future of West Prairie Sound opportunity. The only other thing I'm going to say, sorry to be so long-winded, but the only other thing I'm going to say is that I'm convinced that this is an important initiative for West Prairie Sound and for Whitestone. And it's not so much a case of how many of our ratepayers are actually going to take out memberships or are going to swim in the pool or work out in the gym or whatever. That isn't the primary consideration. The primary consideration is that there are many, many people who consider a complex of this sort to be an essential amenity for locating in this area, and it is going to impact our ability. It's already impacted our ability, and it's going to continue to impact our ability to attract individuals and companies and so on to the area, whether we have a facility like this, or if we have a facility like this is going to be a positive influence in getting enabling our population and our economy to grow. So I believe it's very important from that point of view And, I think we should, I think I honestly believe that residents of Whitestone will in fact use the facility. It's difficult to measure this sort of thing up front, of course, because the facility doesn't exist. But I think if it is there and there are programs, as there will be, the programs that cater to various needs in the community, from swimming lessons for kids to therapeutic exercise sessions, in the water and that sort of thing for seniors, that will we will get our use out of it. So anyway, that's just a sort of an introduction, a high-level introduction. I know that there are questions about various details about the thing, which we can try to answer. I would just remind you that there will be, there perhaps are questions that we can answer. The purpose isn't to try to address everything tonight. There will be a session arranged at some point in the next month or so. I don't know whether in this year or early in the next year, but before any concrete decisions are made, there will be an opportunity where the various technical folks who have been involved and who've done a lot of the work in this will be able to come out and present what it's going to look like, how it's going to work, all of those kinds of things. And if you have technical questions about, well, why did you choose this site instead of some other site, or why did you make this number of lanes in the pool versus that number, those kinds of questions are probably best left for that particular meeting when the experts are there, and not for us tonight. But in any case, I'll ask Madam Clerk, do you have anything that any other comments that you want to add to what I said before we open it up for questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your description was very thorough. The one thing I can add is that the steering committee, which is the CAO group, is meeting this Thursday to discuss the timelines for what the mayor referred to as the Dog and Pony Show. So that would be the consultants and other technical people that were involved in some of the decision making, or some of the due diligence work, as well as looking at the cost sharing, will be available for each and every individual council. I suspect it needs to be a special meeting. It's going to take more time than would be normally available at a regular council meeting. So I'll be working with the mayor on a date for that. But we are hopeful, actually, that it will happen in 2020. So more to come on that. Other than that, I can answer some of the questions, I think, if necessary, and we'll turn it back to Mayor Comrie.
And I'll turn it back to the councillors and others who may have questions or comments. Who wants to go first?
Leaving the meeting.
Councillor Lamb.
This is Bruce Morris. I'm not sure if Doug Hickey is on the phone still, but I think he probably has. I know you addressed a few things in the first correspondence that I saw. Not sure what the second one is, but Doug, are you still here?
I'm still here. I was giving a chance for the councillors to speak first, and then I thought I would jump in after they had asked their questions or added comments.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate your. Sorry,
Mayor, you're asking for councillors before we go to the audience, the public.
Yeah? Yes. I was going to suggest that. I appreciate that courtesy. Go ahead, Councillor McEwen.
A couple comments, I guess. Really, I was representing Whitestone on the Economic Development Group, West Prairie Sound, back in 2015, and I remember the starting of this whole thing. It was Carling who brought it forward, and their hope was at that time that there could be some kind of funding and money flowed through the at that time the school board, the Near North School Board in the west side here, and they were
joining the meeting.
Councillor Lamb.
Welcome back, Joe.
Yeah. Thank you. I was, I guess I was so stunned by some of the remarks the mayor made, I hit the mute button or the disconnect button by mistake. But anyway, carry on, people.
Okay, I'm just giving a couple of comments here, Joe. When I represented Whitestone on the West Prairie Sound Economic Development, I guess it was after Tammy was leaving us or had left for a few months. That was when I first was informed about a possible pool wellness, that type of activity or community center. And it came from Carling Township, who at the time was keen on getting the school board, because they were looking at a brand new school, to include a pool. So it goes back to 2015 for me, and then it kind of worked its way away from the school board, who is not in the pool business, especially up in the northern areas here. And then it gradually kept moving forward until committees were struck, and it started getting more realistic and possible, I guess. I don't know about the realistic part, but now through the whole time period, there's been no assistance that I'm aware of in a major way to support the municipalities and/or Prairie Sound with a pool complex. So this is probably the first and maybe a one-time opportunity to at least investigate the possibility of funds to support a major complex of this nature. So to be involved in just investigating it, and whether other municipalities buy in when the numbers really come out and the grants come down, if they come down. We're still in the kind of the investigative mode as far as I'm concerned, that we have to look at our share, which is determined, and I guess personally I can accept that. It's still a big chunk for us to bite off for Whitestone. There are ways to finance without being frightened to death by a big number, putting it over periods of times and looking at some different models that way. But I'm still supportive of supporting it to the point that we get the information to make some decent decisions, or decisions that represent West Prairie Sound, as well as I guess Whitestone's ability to pay our portions for the capital at the beginning, and then the ongoing cost of running it. We do have some very good information, and the report that came from the October 20, I believe it was, committee, it's quite intensive, and it's quite informative. So anyway, I'm looking forward to finding out where we can go with this, if we can go with it. I know it's really a big one-time deal for the West Prairie Sound area, for not just permanent residents, but all residents coming and going and living and working throughout our West Prairie Sound area, which includes Whitestone. And I guess we being the furthest away to the west here, in the west-northwest, other than Point of Barrel and heading up toward Britt, we do have consideration for distance and population and potential usage, and that's why our number is where it is on the percentage charge out, and our cost percentages, cost allocation, I guess it is. So anyway, having said that, I'm still hopeful we can see something come out of this, but it has to still be to the benefit of Whitestone in a way that's affordable for us. So hopefully we'll see neighbors opt in and not opt out. If a couple of other municipalities opt out, then that's changing things drastically for everybody. At least of all, not Whitestone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other councilors who wish to comment before we open it up to our two guests?
Councillor Lamb. And again, I want to say, first of all, I'm not against a pool in Parry Sound. What I want is a fair and equal opportunity for all our citizens and ratepayers, the people who are going to pay for this, okay, to have a say in it. So having said I'm not for or against, I want to listen to the ratepayers, right? So I'm really, really kind of a little upset that we're starting in, and I appreciate Councillor McEwen's viewpoint, by the way, which I think he's still open to all this. But I think to put a stake in the ground to saying this is good for the community, and I don't know what the mayor said, but I know when he said it, I sort of my hair in the back of my head sort of stood up, because it sort of said, doesn't matter what anyone says in Whitestone or what our citizens say, I'm for this, right? And that's how I'm going to vote. And I'm not trying to put words in the mayor's mouth, but, you know, at the end of the day, I think that's where we're going with this. And I have many questions on all this. You know, I don't want to get into them tonight, because what we got was a one-liner saying, Poolness Center update, you know, Mayor Comrie, right? We didn't get any data. We didn't get any formulas. We didn't get any information. And then, you know, this afternoon we got an email saying, here's a couple links. Go on to the links and, you know, look at the links, and you know, that'll help you out for tonight. Well, it's not helping me out for tonight at all. I didn't read the links. Thank God I've had people call me on the links, and I've had, you know, there's no secret. My wife has been on the committee, so she knows a lot about all this stuff. And you know, I think unbiasedly she's told me about all this. But I mean, you know, when are we going to discuss things like the formula, right? And you know, the formula, although it's 6%, you know, as a council member, I've argued that 6% is our contribution level to everything in Parry Sound. But you know, the last council meeting, of course, it wasn't 6%. It was, well, the heck with 6%. We'll just give 14% or whatever that's, you know, because that's what they asked, and that's what we're going to give. We need to fix that. But anyway, having said that, you know, why does Seguin, you know, get to say, well, you know, our people can go to Bracebridge, so based on the formula, we only need to pay half price, right? And then somehow, whoever made that decision on the formula, I don't know who the heck made the decisions. Was it the CAOs? Was it the mayors? Whoever, it suddenly became that they decided that that's what they're going to pay, right? Well, we can go to Huntsville and get to a pool. Well, quite frankly, 80% of our residents can go to Welland or Hamilton or Waterdown or Fort Erie or wherever the heck they live on a full-time basis and go to the Y, right? It seems to me not realistic. Parry Sound has 6,500 residents, right? We have 1,000 at best. I guess the signs say 1,100. We have, you know, whatever, 6.5 times less than they do. Well, take our 6% and multiply it by 6.5%. That becomes between 36 and 40%. If I'm Jamie McGarvey in Parry Sound, I'm saying, thank you. You know, not only are we're getting government funds, and I'm thankful for those funds, right? I'm very thankful for those funds. But you know what? we're getting all the rest of these municipalities to pay, and you only have to pay 24% of this, right? And you're the ones going to use it because you're the closest. And anyway, there's so much to go on. The pool is $32 million. There was discussion at the mayor's committee a week or two ago. I wasn't part of it, but I've had calls from people saying the 32 could be $40 million, depending on the menu that you choose. Is it a 4-lane pool? Is it a 6-lane pool? Who knows, right? If it's a 6-lane pool, part of the justification is, well, we'll get a commit or a regatta or a pool thing, right? Coming up to Parry Sound. You're living in dreamland. There's no viewing area in that 6-lane pool. Or I guess if there is, it's $40 million, right? So it could grow. The costs are estimates, okay? They're only estimates. In our library, our estimate was $500,000. It ended up, $700,000. The operating deficit at $18,000. If you think that that's accurate, anyone, you're crazy. The $18,000 is a bare minimum. Bottom line, it's going to continue to grow. And if you add the $18,000 a year to the $525,000 that's being asked, it's at least a half or $750,000, maybe reaching over the years to $1 million. And you're asking this from the taxpayers, okay? So, I could go on and on and on and on with questions that I have on this sheet that I won't carry on because it honestly is very long. And no one in our community realizes, I don't think we realize that the makeup of our community. The makeup of our community is 80% seasonal. I will guarantee you 90% of the seasonal people have no idea that we're even discussing this. They don't. And if you want to argue with me on that, I will argue from now till doomsday. So all I'm saying is what we need to do as a community in Whitestone is to put the question out to them. Here is an unbiased letter from us saying, here's the cost, here's what it means to you in terms of an upfront commitment, and you can talk about economic development and how it means a great thing to Parry Sound. But the economic development from Parry Sound, by the way, is going to be all to Parry Sound. There's little or no that's going to come from Whitestone. So, but anyway, we need to get a big campaign coming from us to our citizens to say, here's what it is, here's what the cost is, here's what your commitment is, and here's what it means to you. And if at the end of the day our citizens say, yeah, we're overwhelmingly for this, then I'm okay with it, right? But to look at the survey that was put out and to look at the committee that was struck, the committee was struck for a yes answer. And the committee was struck with a tremendously biased attitude, okay? And their answers and their survey, I don't know whose survey it was, but the survey that came out was tremendously biased. It was like asking people what they wanted, what kind of car do you want, without ever even approaching the cost or the implication to them. So, this whole process is somewhat flawed, in my opinion, and I could go on and on, but I don't even know. I guess if this is introduced as general comments, then those are my general comments. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Other councilors?
Yes. Can I go, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, please.
Sure. So yeah, I think there's still lots of work to be done in terms of getting more information and getting feedback from ratepayers and such. A lot of the feedback I've gotten have been very positive, but obviously the people that are positive haven't had a chance to look at all the final figures or anything as well. We're really still not at a situation where we can make a completely informed decision, but I think in terms of having lived up here for almost 50 years, I think this is the closest I've seen all of the municipalities coming together and really making strides and trying to work together to bring this project forward. And I think it would be a huge asset to the community. I had just a brief talk with our treasurer today, Pat, with regards to our share and how we could finance it and what it would mean overall in terms of our debt and such. And, that's something that we'll have to have her go into more detail with us on. I don't want to commit to something like this to the detriment of our own projects and things that we would want to do in Whitestone that may be needed, but I also don't want to close the door completely on this either, because I think it's a great initiative. I think it's something that the community needs, and I'm certainly open to feedback and learning more about it as we go forward. And I thank everyone for all the tremendous work that's gone into getting us to this point.
Okay. Are there any other comments, Councillor Woods?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just a few. I would say, I'm definitely not against having a pool in Parry Sound. I'm not 100% sure I'm all in for a pool in Parry Sound at the cost that we're looking at carrying. I do think that we need to get as much information from all of our ratepayers as possible and contact and get direct answers from as many as possible before we could make any sort of decision like this, because $527,000 up front is a lot of money, and we do have a lot of things a few things anyway that we would like to get done in the municipality. And when you're talking, $500 for this and maybe a couple hundred for another one, or another few hundred for another project, I'd like to see what that represents as a tax increase to each of our ratepayers. What's my property tax bill going to look like? And I'd like to see more of the information put out to all of our ratepayers, even everyone that says, yeah, they're all in favor for it, how much it's going to cost them on their taxes, and what's the cost of us actually going and getting a Y membership or participating in all these programs? Because a lot of people that I've talked to are under the impression that if Whitestone's all in for building the pool, that they're not going to be paying fees to go use the facility. So I do think there's a lot more information that needs to be put out to everyone and give everyone the opportunity to give proper feedback before we can make a proper informed decision.
Okay. Thanks for your comments. Again, I would simply reiterate the reason that this is on the agenda tonight is to let you know that there is where we're at. It is certainly I think everyone's intention that we would provide the information that you're talking about. The reason that it hasn't been provided beforehand is that a lot of things were still up in the air, and we didn't have the kind of information. So now that, for example, as a result of the meeting that was held the other night, the decision was made that we would go forward with the budget for the project that has been established already, which means that you can now sit down and say, all right, we know how much capital money we're talking about, and worst case, this is what the municipalities have to raise. we know what we have the best estimates that we can get at this juncture as to how many people will use the facility and what the what the deficit in the operating cost is likely to be. So that information can in fact be provided to people, and they can. We don't have an information package ready to roll out with all of this information, but as of this moment in time. But as you heard the CAO say earlier, it's being worked on. The intention is that everybody would get this in time to have an opportunity to provide some feedback and an opportunity to ask other questions and get them answered. And I guess that's the best we can do, and then we measure what the response is of the people who have chosen to comment one way or the other on it at that point.
Yeah,
nobody is suggesting. Sorry, I have the floor. Hang on.
Thank you.
Nobody is suggesting that has happened. That has happened already. It hasn't. I think we were hoping that it would, perhaps, as in the intervening time over the summer and so on. But for a variety of perfectly valid reasons, it didn't happen. So we still have to do that. So nobody's backing away from that, but I think, as I said before, we've now got to the point where we've pretty much got the information we need to support the assumptions that people would make in terms of what the project would involve and that kind of thing. And so that information can be shared, and then we'll go from there. And council will have the opportunity to once it's reviewed all the information, and once the ratepayers have reviewed the information and provided whatever feedback they choose to provide, then council will have to make a decision as to whether to support the project, and that will be going on in 7 other municipalities, I guess. So that's where we're at. Anyway,
Councillor Lamb.
You've already spoken quite a bit on this, Councillor Lamb. Can you be quick?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Thank you for respecting that you had the floor. I hope you continue to observe that as we go on into the future. Because anyway, so please respect that. So having said that, my question is, and I'll be very brief, which I'm probably not, but you're not either. What is our level of commitment at this point, Mr. Mayor? Thank you.
Our level of commitment is that we will present the things that have been agreed to by the heads of council for the 7 municipalities to our ratepayers for feedback and to our councils for decisions. At an appropriate time, which is when we know whether or not we're going to get funding or not, right? And how much, and we still don't. That we still don't know, of course. So I don't think there's any point in having a council decision when we don't have, on a theoretical premise that if we get this funding, we'll go ahead or not. We might as well wait till we get it, because it's not going to be long, in my opinion, that we get an answer.
So I guess my second question is, Mr. Mayor, what are you supporting as an engagement to our citizens beyond what's happened now? Are you committed to a letter asking their opinion based on an unbiased account of the facts on this on this issue, or are you for a public meeting in the middle of the winter when people aren't here and we're going to, kind of make a decision, right? We can't make a decision in December or January on an issue that I will guarantee you 80% of our people who are seasonal, and I will guarantee you 90% of them don't even know we're talking about a pool, let alone committing $500,000 or more, closer to $1 million, quite frankly, if you take into the account the operating fund over the next 10 years with inflation and whatever. Like when are we going to get their opinion? Honestly,
well, they're going. First of all, they're going to know because
I haven't excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I have the floor, don't I, or do you?
Well, you asked the question. Really,
hold it, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor,
Lamb, you
Mr.
can
Mayor.
ask. Why don't you just ask one question and I'll answer, and then you can answer another one.
No, excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
You're making statements. You're not asking questions, and
I asked you, when are we going to go to the population and ask a question? But you don't like the question.
I was trying to answer your question.
Just hold on. You don't like the question, so you're going to butt in halfway. Like, I could have two questions, and you could answer two questions, I think, right? Anyway, I'll leave it at that. You know where I'm going to, but I guess your statement is more important than mine, so way you go. Thank you.
The people are going to know, all of the ratepayers are going to know about this because it's going to be in the newsletter that is going out in November.
Oh,
so they will know that this is that they will know that this is going on, right? Well, I'm sorry. What are you suggesting we do? Telephone them all? Is that what you want to do?
All I'm saying, if you hadn't interrupted me to begin with, okay. All I'm saying is, when are all the facts that I brought up, and there are even more, when is council able to say to the CAO, here are the concerns I have, and here is a proper newsletter, not the November one. When is a proper newsletter with all the unbiased facts on this pool going out to all our citizens? And I don't think it's a newsletter. I think it's a separate letter to say, here it is, here's the facts, here's the cost, here's the implications, and do you support this or do you not? And I'm not saying a plebiscite. I'm saying just let us know by an email, by whatever, and don't, let it be stacked by 20 people telling us the same answer. Like, when are we going to come up with a strategy to actually, get the opinion of our citizens? Now, after that, if politicians like me and you and others want to say, thank you very much, but we're going for this anyway, then God bless you, right? So at least the facts will be out and they're transparent. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could we share the airtime very, very slightly here?
Well, yeah, Councillor Lamb I'm not going to give him any more airtime. He's made his points, and I understand what they are, and but yeah, I think we need to let other people make their comments. Please go ahead if you want. We're certainly open to suggestions from the councillors and others as to how we can best do what Councillor Lamb is saying he wants to do. I think we agreed all along we were going to do this. So anybody has any good suggestions, please bring them up.
Well, I have a comment at least.
Yes, go ahead.
personally, being a capital project, I don't feel we have to get into a referendum sort of scenario on this type of event. And I don't think we're not being transparent, especially if we put at least information out on the next newsletter. We need buy-in from neighbors to know that everyone is going into this project once the numbers do come down, and the numbers can't really come down properly until we do find out if a grant acceptance and by what amount is there. And you know, as far as people knowing, I'm quite surprised how many people know about it. They don't have the details. We're just getting the detail. So not to send anything out to ratepayers at this point, we don't have the real numbers to do it, in my estimation. So
who's speaking right now?
Joe McEwen.
Councillor McEwen is speaking.
So anyway, if I still have the air just for a moment.
Go ahead.
I think we need the real numbers, Mr. Mayor, before we can put anything out in any format to our ratepayers. This has been kicked around for a lot of years, and I think if you ask people if they want the taxes increased, plain and simple, they'll say no. If they have a chance to discuss it and get some good information on it, which hopefully they gradually can, then they can realize that, okay, it's a municipality, it's a municipality that works and lives within a regional district, and we're trying to work together to provide the good for the district as well as individuals within our ratepayer scenarios here. So anyway, bottom line, I don't think we're ready to put information out in any specific detail to our ratepayers at this point. Thank you.
Doug,
Okay, are there? Yes, you can speak, Doug.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I have sent an email off to yourself and every member of council, and the other gentleman on the line, Bruce Morris, he has seen my email. It has 6 points. It has 6 requests for information that I think every ratepayer should understand, because so far, up until we've seen the $524,000 and the annual cost, people were saying, I'd love a pool, without understanding the price tag. So we finally got the price tag. The thing is, I've heard, Councillor McEwen saying we're still in the investigative stage. We're really not. We're at the point where the pool cost is going to be $32 million, going to be shared by the various municipalities. And if we get the funding, which, as you have said, we expect to get, my sense is the numbers are done. They're in. We've got the numbers. And so all my questions about what will the cost to each taxpayer be, that's valid. We should be doing that analysis and sharing that with people now. Now, one of my concerns, and I'm not going to reiterate all my 6 questions because you've all been able to read them. One of my biggest concerns involves the word commitment. When I listened to the Parry Sound Steering Committee, that word was used several times and agreed to by the mayors or the heads of council, saying, we are committed to this, we are committed to the funding formula, and my sense is, if in fact the government comes back and says, here's your $24 million, I believe you, Mr. Mayor, have committed Whitestone to saying yes. And then what I've heard is you've described how then you will have meetings going out to the public, but the way you've worded it is it's information. We now get the information about a decision that's already been made. Based on what? Has the question been posed to council? If we have to spend $524 million and $18,000 a year, do we all agree? I have never heard that in a council meeting. So, Mr. Mayor, at this point, do you believe that if the government comes back at $24 million, are we, Whitestone, committed to spending it?
I don't know. That'll be up to council, I guess.
Wait a second. No, my question, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Do you believe that Whitestone is committed if the government comes down with $24 million? Have we committed?
Well, perhaps, let me explain to you how governance works in in West Parry Sound. We don't have an upper tier government in Parry Sound District. Each of the 7 councils has its own, sovereignty. I cannot make a decision. The only way I can get a decision from Whitestone Council is to go to Whitestone Council and say, put a motion, have a motion go on to the floor of the meeting, and the council says yes, we will vote on the motion and we'll decide if we want to do that. And the other councils are in exactly the same position. It's not clear to me that any of them have passed motions that say, if we get the funding, we'll proceed as arranged. Our agreement was that we would take we would take this formula that has been worked on at great length by a whole bunch of people that seemed reasonable to those of us who were part of the the committee of heads of council. That anyway, that's as far as we got with that. So it has to eventually come to all of the councils to make a decision. And as I said earlier, it was very, very important. In fact, the only way that we could possibly get any traction with this as far as government funding is concerned is to present a unified front. And I am very proud of the way that the 7 municipalities have worked together to make this happen. To get to where we are today. A lot of work went into this. There was a lot of pushing and shoving. Perhaps the clerk could fill you in. I don't know if we want to take the time to do it tonight, but to fill you in on, the various discussions that led to the 6% and so on. But for us and the various percentages that the other municipalities have, but there was a lot of back and forth on that thing. I mean, are we going to go back and revisit it? Probably not, right? So I think you are correct, Doug, that we are now in a situation where we do know what the implication is for a Whitestone ratepayer, but we haven't been previously, and so now is the opportunity that we have to share this with council. And I'm not suggesting that we're going to share the information that you want in the newsletter, but we're going to tell the people in the newsletter, this is going on, here's where we are in the project, here's where you can find the information, and ask them to weigh in with any comments that we can do. And it seems to me that this is the appropriate time to do it. I mean, I can see somebody saying, well, it'd be nice to leave it till later next year sometime, but if the province comes through on short notice or the feds come through on short notice with this funding, then we will have to then we will have to put it on the agenda, the question that you want answered on the agenda of a council meeting to make a decision. We'll have some sort of a time frame in which to do that, I suspect. So we're trying to take advantage of the time we have right now to get the word out to people and give them the best information we have at the moment and give them an opportunity to weigh in. So that's the whole purpose of putting this on the agenda this evening.
And Mr. Mayor, I appreciate that, and that's why I started my email with thank you for putting it on the agenda. I'm going to play it back. I think what I hear is, in order to play with the government, we had to use the word commitment. but within Whitestone, we are not committed yet to the $500,000+ until it goes before council and council agrees. Is that correct?
It is correct.
Okay. And then, so my next question is, I keep hearing that we're going to be informed as a taxpayer. We're going to have a chance to comment. We're going to have a chance to hear from the experts. But what I have not really had a clear understanding of, will you be listening to me if I say, not me, but 4,000 of us, when they say, now that I know the price tag and the impact to my taxes, as much as I'd like a pool, I don't think I want it now. Let's find another way to go use that pool. So not will we get a chance to get information, will we get a chance to tell council for when they make their vote whether the majority of people really do support it? Will we get that chance?
That's the intention, yes.
Thank you. And thank you. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
This is Bruce Morris. I have a couple. Just listening to today's discussion. There was a couple of questions. I think Councillor Woods had a comment or a question about what does a Y membership cost. So I based it on my age. I'm 55 years old. That's $673 a year. I think it's $20, so it's $595 if you're a senior, and which I would think would be a big chunk of our 1,100 full-time residents. And it's a little less for, I think it's $14 bi-weekly for kids, basically. So you're looking at anywhere between $450 and $675, basically. You actually mentioned, Mayor, something about you can't measure the impact of what it'll be like on Whitestone. And just years of working in marketing and market research, we got 2% of Whitestone people that responded to that survey that went out. That's a pretty good mark of what interest or knowledge of the pool there is. So I think, I talked a few meetings ago about communication. I think we need to really up the communication, and I'm wondering if your consultant has joined the team yet.
I'm sorry. You wondered if our consultant.
Well, you were bringing in the CAO said she was bringing in a communications person to improve the communication to the ratepayers and the rest of the community, and I'm not sure if that's happened or not yet, but that should be probably one of the first things that he or she works on. Because honestly, the newsletter discussion could be possible. I think it's probably better to have a Zoom call, which again is a discussion for why these meetings aren't on a Zoom call. But I think you mentioned that the internet might be a challenge. But you can actually do surveys on Zoom. You could do surveys on SurveyMonkey that don't cost very much. So there's a way to actually access everybody who's not local to get things done. So you have that capability to get it done, for sure. I had a bunch of other questions, but I think everybody else has beat that horse dead. So I think that's it for me. Oh, actually, one question, 2 questions. When do you think the 73% of the funding will be approved? That's one. And 2, I know during the meeting that you posted the minutes to, but there was a discussion of it was going to go between 31 million or 40 million based on people's interest on a 6-lane pool in the second level. I don't remember hearing I know the submission to the government was based on the $31 million pool, but if we do the $40 million pool, we can't go back and ask for 73% of that $9 million difference, right? So.
Well, yeah. Okay. Sorry. Your first question, Bruce. I can't answer. I have no idea when we will hear something from the federal government. They have lots of other irons in the fire, as you know. So I think that's anybody's
Leaving
guess.
the meeting.
As to the
Councillor Lamb.
As to the second question, I think the decision that was made at the meeting was to go with the funding numbers that were presented to the government, which is the 32 million, not the 40 million.
Okay.
So those numbers, and I think that the group did that. I mean, there was some discussion about whether there might be some ways to incorporate some of the other things that people wanted into the proposal without materially changing the cost. But the problem was you can't leave the target out there as a sort of a moving target and give people accurate information. So, the thought was, let's just go with the numbers that we have and that were in the application and use that as the budget. And so that's why I'm saying, that's why I said earlier, I believe that we do have enough information to say to people, okay, this is what this will cost the individuals. It will cost the residents of Whitestone. This is what it will over both in terms of capital costs and operating costs, and this is what it will cost you. We should be able to tell them what it will cost to use the facility. I'm not sure that
Joining the meeting
right now, but
Councillor Lamb,
we have that. I think we have all of that information. So anyway, I'll ask the clerk to respond to your question about communication. Just the comment I was going to make is that the sort of traveling roadshow or whatever that I referred to earlier, where the experts would be available, I believe the intention was and is that would be a virtual meeting, probably conducted using Zoom. And so people can, wherever they are, they can, if they do have internet access, they can get onto it and they can participate that way. They can see material that's being presented. And if they don't have internet access, they could still call in and they could still dial in and listen. I mean, we've had a number of meetings of this form for other purposes. We're not doing our council meetings that way, but I think that's what's intended. So people should be able to participate, and maybe we can provide a forum for them to an easy forum for them to provide express their opinions one way or the other on this, so that we get some feedback from the participants. So, Madam CAO, do you have any other comments as far as the communication piece is concerned?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's something I've been wanting to share with council. This has just come to light this past week. We hired a communication consultant, as council knows, who developed a strategy for us. She is no longer available to us as of last week. She has moved on to other things and had been unavailable for the most part for the past month or so, although I was trying to work on getting some time out of her. We also have a communications coordinator who's working on our website with us, but this gentleman is not what I would call a consultant. So I'm working on replacing the consultant so that we have someone to help us with some of the high-level communication pieces, the pool being one. So that's in progress, and I'll have to update council at another meeting a little bit more specifically, but this is something that's just come to light recently. We do need to communicate with people better. Our improved website is going to help that. We're going to have an improved Facebook page shortly as well. There's been some technical challenges there, but beyond that, we have to consider what are the other options. How do we reach out to people and get them to interact with us? And so that's something that still needs to be done. I don't disagree.
Okay, well, are there any other?
Mr. Mayor, it's Doug Hickey. Could I just have one very brief comment, please?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Woods, brought up a good point, which was answered by Mr. Morris, and that is, what's the additional cost for somebody to be a YMCA member? That is very important for people in Whitestone to understand, that even if we get this pool, even if we contribute to it, you still have to pay over and above that. So another follow-on could be, if we, Whitestone, opted out and said we support in concept, just like the two First Nation groups who are supporting the pool but not funding, if we support the pool, we can still help our residents going to the pool. And by the way, spreading our 6% over the other 6 municipalities is a drop in the bucket for them. That's my last two comments.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor. Well, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Doug's, comments. I think they're very relevant. We just need to think through all this very soundly. And I think what it comes down to, in my mind, is, as I said, during the election, I'm not for or against it. I just want to make sure that the people have a say in this, because this isn't a like or a want or whatever. That's the bucket that it falls into, right? And so, if the majority of the people in the community say, yeah, we're for this, and during the survey period, by the way, that was the decision, right? That, they were all for it. But the survey was not a good survey. It was a bad survey, right? So what we need to do, and what I was going to suggest, is we put, as I said earlier, an unbiased letter to our citizens to say, not a plebiscite. I don't want a plebiscite to say, it's 51-49, they're for it or against it. I just want people to be able to weigh in. And you know what? If at the end of the day, either the seasonal or the local people, whoever they are, weigh in, or they decide not to weigh in, right? That's at their detriment. Council is going to make a decision. And I just want to find out a communication mechanism that we can ask people truly what they believe on an unbiased proposition put to them, right? Because isn't that our job? Our job isn't to weigh in to say, I think that it's the best for our community or our region. I guess we can do that after all the data is in. But the data isn't in. So I remain uncommitted until the data is all in, right? And I think we're missing this. If our job as counselors is to reach a conclusion before the data is in, then I think the system is all screwed up. So anyway, having said that, I leave it at that. Let's find a mechanism, take all this data, put it to our people, not in the middle of the winter at a public meeting to say, well, you had your chance to hook in, when they don't even know that it's even being discussed, right? Like, we need to be better than that. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I think we've had a fairly fulsome discussion, and I believe that we can do what is being asked in terms of providing the sort of information that people need to let them know this is going on. Give them an opportunity to get more information if they want, give them an opportunity to weigh in if they want. I'm committed. I'm committed to trying to see that is done. It's going to require some. We don't have all the details yet, but I think it was a good discussion, and we know what we need to do. So.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, are you therefore committed to a letter to citizens, a separate letter to say here's the pool and wellness center, here's the unbiased facts, and I want your opinion, and here's how you give your opinion. I'm not trying to give all the details for this, but are you committed to that type of regimen?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was all along. I'm not sure sort of where the conspiracy theory idea is coming from, but anyway, that's all right.
Well, quite frankly, Mr. Mayor, you weren't based on your opening comments. I'm for this, and anyway. I don't want to get into a debate, but you sort of made your decision before any of us got to comment on it. So, but anyway, thank you very much. Thank you. I'll post out on this. So.
Okay. All right. Well, let's if we can.
Mr. Mayor, if I could make one comment, I'm not sure what you just committed us to, but we don't have the facts and figures to put out there just currently, other than to inform people and to be transparent with them that we're looking at and considering supporting a pool. I don't know how we can go any further than that. So if we're pushing you into something more than you want to quite off right at this point or not. But I'm a little bit confused as to where you're going.
Well, okay, I believe that what we can say to people is the folks have done their due diligence. This is the scope of the project. This is how much money it's going to cost. This is how much money we expect in total. This is how much money we expect to get. We have applied for and expect to get from the Government of Canada. What is left is this to be funded by municipalities, and Whitestone's share of that would amount to this in terms of, so we are potentially looking at this capital cost up front and this annual operating deficit. And we can tell them this is because the operating deficit is based on how the operator, which in this case is assumed to be the YMCA, is going to raise revenue from people who use the facility. So it's the difference between what they raise versus what the operating cost is for the staff and the hydro and chemicals and everything else they have to have, right? So we can give them all that. We can give people that information based on the most accurate assumptions we have at this moment. And again, it assumes we're going to get funding from the government. It assumes we're going to get, there's assumptions in there, but they're the best one. We're not going to get better ones until we actually commit to a project and start going down the road of doing it. So
we're going to have to.
I don't know why. I don't know. I guess I don't. What I'm saying is I don't know why we couldn't say to people, if this is the way it is, to the best of our ability, this is what it's going to look like. Are you up for this or not? Right, and that way we can get some indication for the benefit of councilors who will have to at someday in the future vote on a motion. Did that make sense to you, Councillor McEwen, or?
Well, that pretty well sums it up. I think you're on track with it. I was just curious to know if you're putting numbers out or what you're going to do. It's difficult to throw a number out there and have people understand. Only my big concern. Like, it's a pretty frightening number to throw out 300 or 537,000 or whatever it is, and plus operating expenses. That's based on all all municipalities participating for one thing, and if they don't participate, they're all in the same boat we are, I guess, the best case scenario if they do participate. So I guess we should be maybe informing them that this is the best case scenario if everyone participates. If one opts,
and that's,
I don't, it's a tricky one.
No, you're right, but that, and we can state that as an assumption, but I think everybody else is operating under the same assumption, right? You have to, in order to go forward, you have to have some framework. So if we're all in, that's what our share would be. And and of course, this is. Well, anyway, look, I really don't want us to debate tonight the debate that we're going to have when we have to make a decision. I think the question, the information we give people is, okay, this is somebody asked the question, well, what's the impact on your tax? Well, if we fund a capital project, like other ones that we've done over the years that are in the same ballpark as what our share of this one would be, then we look at the amortization period and the rates that we have to pay on the money, and we say, okay, this is how much this is how much you have to budget each year as the payments on interest and principal, and here's what that represents to an average taxpayer. So I think you can boil it right down to the same as we have done in the past when we've discussed other capital projects. We can provide that information for people so that they have a sense of, I'm not trying to suggest to anybody that this is a free ride. It's not.
No, but I like your approach to give them an indication of what taxes would increase by, not just throw a number out there without some justification behind what we're giving them. So anyway, thank you. I say no more.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you again for your comments, and thanks to our guests as well for participating. I'm happy that members of the public are taking an interest in these things. We've got one more under business matters, and that has to do with the Parry Sound Area Planning Board. And once again,
leaving the meeting.
What I want,
Doug Hickey.
Once again, what I want to do is to just kind of give you a little bit of information, mostly to think about. And some of you already know about this anyway, but I guess what we want to do in this particular case is to start thinking about the future of the Parry Sound Area Planning Board without Parry Sound participating in it. Parry Sound has applied to withdraw from it, and the decision, of course, rests with the Minister of Municipal Affairs. In my opinion, the decision will be to grant them the opportunity to leave the board and appoint them as their own planning authority. That would, if that happens, that would leave 4 municipalities left in the planning board. 2 of the 7 are already not part of it, as I think most of you know. Anyway, if Parry Sound were to leave, there would be 4 of us left, and there is some indication that some of the other municipalities involved would be just as happy to also exit the planning board. So I think the question is, ultimately the question for council is what do we want to do? The staff in the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing are going to ask us formally for a response at some point. At this stage, they are simply gathering facts about about how the planning board actually works and what the members of the planning board themselves think about it and so on. So this is more than anything a heads up. I guess what I was hoping would come out of the discussion, and I'm going to just open it up for discussion in a sec, but what I was hoping would come out of it perhaps would be perhaps a staff direction, a direction to our CAO to consider the implications of Whitestone taking over its own planning responsibilities on the assumption that the board might collapse, might be allowed to collapse at the end if there are other municipalities that also have the same request as Parry Sound. And think about, well, what would the implications of that be for us in terms of our processes, our costs that we need to put into the budget and various other things. I think the Ministry of Municipal Affairs will go to some pains to ensure that Parry Sound's exit doesn't negatively affect the other participants in the board if they in fact choose to want to continue it with 4 members instead of 5, because that is a possibility, of course. But I guess this is a good opportunity for a broad discussion about whether the board is actually helping us get anything done, or whether there aren't better options for us. It's an opportunity for us to consider if there aren't better opportunities or better options for us to just find other ways to do it, perhaps on our own, perhaps in conjunction with other municipalities and so on. So I'm going to open it up for discussion. After that, if someone wishes to make a motion to provide a staff direction, I would certainly entertain that, because I know you will have questions that at this stage of the game none of us can answer. With that, comments from councillors.
Do you really want comments?
No, well, and you're a member of the board already, so I'm sure you would have some.
Well, Mr. Mayor, as I mentioned today in a note to council, I think personally I'd like to see us just be a little bit slower to draw on this, and partly because we presently do have a working situation, and I don't see the MMAH coming down real quick. Probably take 6 months or whatever to give Parry Sound any notice from the minister that they can do what they wish to do. As for the other municipalities, I don't think we can speak for whether they want out or not. There's been discussion. I know one has their own planner, but they're still quite active in the planning board. So, and you may know better than I do, going to mayor's meetings, whether they are looking at something similar to this notion or not of investigating where we are if, in fact, Parry Sound is out. I think we have time on our hands to not get too anxious to move too quickly. I think that's my personal feeling on this. We do have a relationship with the planner in Parry Sound. It wouldn't be too much different than if we took it on ourselves for the exceptional situations, of course, and we could handle a lot of internal rudimentary stuff. But presently, I think staffing is a major concern for us. If we do look into investigating it, I could go along with that, as long as we do a proper investigation to see where we would be if, in fact, we did have to go our own way. I just don't think there's any real big rush to do this, since there's an investigation happening by the ministry right now, which will include us looking at the viability of us being a part of a four municipality small planning board. Anyway, if council wished to proceed quickly, I guess so be it. But I would hold back on getting involved real soon. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I would need more information with regards to what the difference in cost would be to our residents in terms of when they had their planning issues and needed a planner, what the difference would be in their expense in wanting to get planning opinions and having planning items going through the Parry Sound Planning Board versus doing it ourselves. You know, I think that's the ultimate thing that people would want to know with regards to how it would affect taxpayers would be what difference it would cost them and what the difference would be time-wise, you know, in terms of waiting for decisions and such. You know, my only thing was with regards to one of the comments that you brought up when this was first emailed to us was about if we were to do something on our own and we had our own little small ad hoc committee, I would be hesitant in what would be the qualifications in people that sat on this committee. You know, by having a separate board, you're able to get that third opinion type thing, as opposed to getting a small group together and things end up getting steered in a certain way within the municipality. So those were my concerns, would be before we said yes or no, that I'd want to know what it would mean to us financially for our ratepayers that need the services and what it would mean to their projects time-wise, and that was impartial in terms of the decisions that were made in the community.
Okay, thank you. Are there other comments?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb, I've long been, you know, kind of the duplication that occurs between the planning board and our decision. So in essence, the bottom line of all this is that what we want to plan, or what council or future councils want to plan and do and be in Whitestone isn't up to us. It's up to pouncing it up to a group of people that are from Parry Sound or Seguin, not Seguin, I guess, but Parry Sound or McKellar or other communities that aren't in Whitestone, right? And we're allowing them to have a vote, right? And I don't see that as a really great system, okay? So, you know, that's one concern that I have. Cost, as Councillor Gorham Matthews has brought up, is a very big concern. We pay $7,000 a year to be part of the planning board, right? If that $7,000 becomes $79,000 because we need to hire a planner, then and I'm not saying that's, you know, what's going to happen, but if that's the staff analysis, then that's a big nut to crack, right? So, you know, you need to weigh that in. You know, there are so many things on a planning aspect that you know, it's like having a lawyer, okay? Like, if we have issues in the municipality, we say, well, we don't know how to handle that. And many of these things are enclosed, but we say, well, let's punted it off to the lawyers to give us advice, right? The planning board gives us advice.